Wow, what an incredible week. SEC Media Days has concluded. And we talked to a lot of people, the Feinbaums of the world, the Sankeys of the world. It's been an incredible week. Welcome to the program on a Friday as we broadcast live each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Hit that like and subscribe button. The poll question is already up there. We'll get to that here momentarily. But what are your thoughts on just in general before we really get into it? The week that was, you now have Texas and Oklahoma. You were in Dallas. There was a lot of change for an SEC Media Days that was pretty similar for about a quarter of a century.
Yeah, there was. For such a big event, and Dave, you can speak to this more than me, but it didn't seem as much as splashy as I thought it might be. The only team that really was obnoxiously loud about being there was Texas. It seemed like Texas wanted to steal all the back page headlines by being there, but everybody else was just, it seemed like the most dull SEC of Media Days in Hoover, Alabama back in the day, didn't it?
It was odd. The strangest part about it was watching Nick Saban. So at Hoover, he would show up and there'd be 500 people there that wanted to talk to him, but there would also be 500 fans because it was in Hoover or Birmingham. And seeing him just kind of walk around like a curmudgeon from place to place and nobody really going out of their way to talk to him was a little bit odd. Having Texas and Oklahoma, just seeing Steve Sarkisian up there talking about Texas at SEC Media Days was a little bit odd. So I think even the most savvy journalists among us were just a little bit, this is strange. Cool, but strange. Now, the Texas and Oklahoma media, they were giddy. You think they're excited? They are very, very excited, Caleb.
I got different vibes from them, though. I think Oklahoma was the whole starstruck to be there, almost like when Kim Kardashian was first dating Kanye West, and you could tell she was just fangirling him the whole time. And I felt that Texas was trying to walk in like they own the place the way they have been doing. You could tell Texas is used to strong arming conferences because they acted like they can strong arm the SEC the whole time they were there, the way they strong arm the Big 12 and the Southwest Conference beforehand. And so I got different vibes from both. I thought Oklahoma was almost too humble to the point where they are in over their head and they just feel like they're not ready for the league. And Texas is too arrogant and feels like they're above the league and they don't realize what they're in for.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think there's something to be said for playing quality opponents like Kentucky. I mean, take a Kentucky. Kentucky's your theoretical off week. That would be a much lower level opponent in the Big 12 or in any other conference, in my opinion, than the SEC. So I think the week in and week out is something that they're going to have to deal with. Hit that like and subscribe button. Caleb, we are loaded up on the show today. So on the program today, check this out. Andy Staples will join us from 247 Sports. Also, Ron Slay, former Vol, will join us, and why Dalton Knecht should have his jersey retired. Matt Moscona covers LSU. We'll talk to him about the Tigers. Mike Griffith covers the University of Georgia. And we've got some history, so that should be fun. We've got a lot on the program today. None of this would be possible if not for our friends at Work Trucks and our great friends at volauto.com. Volunteer Automotive Group, Volunteer Auto Group winners shop here, and they do, especially the Vols, a professional dealership serving drivers in Maryville, Lenoir City, Sweetwater, and Knoxville. When you start shopping for your next vehicle, you'll want more than just a dealership to sell you something. You want a partner in the process. They partnered with several current Tennessee players. They want to partner with you as well. And there's a reason that is Tennessee's preferred dealer for their players, because it truly is. And I also want to thank our great friends at Work Trucks. Man, they've been fantastic. Work Trucks, they're all about trucks that are actually available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all of the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do that. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Less back and forth trips to Dallas. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle. For Work Trucks, they've got the cargo vans, utility body trucks, knapheide work bodies, dump trucks, cranes. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go to worktrucksllc.com. You can order right from there. Worktrucksllc.com, delivered to you. It's the vehicle you have to have. All right, Caleb, let me get your thoughts. And let me get your thoughts on SEC Media Days Day 4 takeaways. Where you want to go with this? What did you think stood out from Day 4?
So I'm going to go broad, and then I'm going to go each team. So my broad standout is, and this was really consistent with the week, all the coaches yesterday were trying to deflect from the real news stories surrounding them. Sam Pittman did a great job kind of deflecting questions about his job security, to the point, Dave, where you just felt bad for him, didn't you? And yeah, and then Mike Elko staying under the radar too. Hugh Freeze didn't say much in Kentucky. The story with Kentucky, as much as it is Brock Vandagriff, Mark Stoops is the defensive coach, and they returned 9 starters on defense. And all Mark Stoops said was, he pulled a Josh Heupel. Depth is good there. We're happy with our situation, yada, yada, yada. So the broad strokes are that it just seems like coaches were not trying to make news. Now to hammer in, starting with Arkansas, there was some things they let slip. Dave, I felt Sam Pittman accidentally threw Arkansas fans under the bus, and I think he's got some bitterness to them, because Steve Sarkisian earlier in the week said he was asked about Sarkisian, saying that Arkansas seems to hate Texas more than they like themselves. And Sam Pittman came out and said he agreed with them at the press conference yesterday. It's a little bit.
Sounds a little like Sam Pittman's ready to get out the door because of the pressure. And let's face it, this is a guy who I thought when he was hired had a limited skill set as an offensive line coach, as a guy who depends on the running game. I think there's a chance that somebody could come in and do something innovative in the run game and be a power football team. But that innovation is not in Sam Pittman's or on Sam Pittman's resume. So we hate to see him go down, but I just don't see any way he survives at Arkansas. The money's too big. You can't just be average and be okay with that anymore, Caleb. By the way, people, if you want to vote on our poll question, is on the YouTube page, and there it goes. Who made the best impression at Tennessee for SEC Media Days? Keenan Pili, Cooper Mays, Omari Thomas, Josh Heupel. Right now, Cooper Mays leads with 58% of the vote. Josh Heupel, second, 33% of the vote. I cannot put him second with the Nike tennis shoes he wore with the suit. More on that, but more takeaways. Brought to you by Don Self of State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net, donself.net. What other takeaways do you have from Day 4 SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas?
So, funny enough, I just want to say I agree with you about Sam Pittman. And before we move on, don't you think part of the problem is a school like Arkansas? You can't hire a ground and pound toughness type of coach at Arkansas. You need a cutting edge, like creative offensive mind at Arkansas, right? That's just not the place for a Sam Pittman type.
Well, you say that, Caleb, and I tend to agree, but Chad Morris was an absolute disaster, and that's what he was supposed to be.
But Chad Morris wasn't that good of an offensive coach either. So, I mean, like that. So, yeah.
I mean, let's face it. Arkansas is perennially what Tennessee was when they had issues with their administration, right, Caleb? Because Tennessee got no's when they went out to hire people because they had a dysfunctional, messed up administration. Arkansas is always going to get no's. I mean, that is just going to happen. Arkansas is going to get no's no matter how good they are when they're out searching for coaches. All right, Caleb,
exactly.
What else? All
right, so moving on, Hugh Freeze, and you can tell me if, because I despise the man as a human, if I'm going out of my way to attack him and be unfair, Dave. You can tell me that. but I thought he was making a very lame excuse yesterday about Auburn's inconsistency his first year. If you wanted to say Auburn was inconsistent because you're installing a new offense, it was your first year as a head coach, you're rebuilding the talent, there's a lot of reasons you could say your team is inconsistent your first year as a head coach. He said, well, it was because I wasn't calling the plays and it created an issue, so I've taken back over play calling duties. I'm sorry, but if you're a coach, you should know whether or not you want to be the play caller, right?
I agree. Every time this goes back and forth, it's a red flag. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as the guy who's a bit of a tweener between a point guard and a shooting guard. I'm like, that never works out. So when you go back and forth between play calling duties, they did this at Auburn with Gus Malzahn, right?
Yeah, they did it before Hugh Freeze.
They went back and forth like 4 times, I believe. So you've had that going on before. I can't remember a situation in which it's worked out. You?
No. As a matter of fact, for those who remember, Jeremy Pruitt gave up play calling duties after a year at Tennessee and couldn't commit to it. Steve Spurrier, later in his years at South Carolina, gave up offensive play calling duties, and South Carolina kind of tanked because Steve Spurrier's whole thing is to call plays. So you're right. If you're not consistent, it just doesn't work, and it was really weird. I believe in Hugh Freeze as the offensive mind, but him not being committed to what he wants to do maybe makes me question him a little bit more than in the past, not just as a character person, but as an actual coach.
Now, we've got on our message board that Lane Kiffin has blasted Paul Feinbaum on his own show.
We'll talk about that later in the show. That's I got to play that for you. It was epic.
Okay, we will get to that. I had a chance to talk to Lane for a second, so we can share some insight there. All right, what else you got, Caleb?
All right, so Mark Stoops at Kentucky. I told you guys earlier that he downplayed the discussion of how deep his defense is. Now, he didn't bring Brock Vandergrift through SEC Media Days, but if you listen to his press conference, it almost made it seem like he is putting a heavy focus on the offense at Kentucky for the first time, because he consistently talked about installing the West Coast offense with Bush Hamden as offensive coordinator from Boise State, really touted the Georgia transfer from Brock Vandergrift. Dave, I think Mark Stoops thinks he's got something with that combination of Vandergrift and Bush Hamden to run that offense. And I think he thinks that, for those who don't know, the West Coast offense is cutting edge, but at the same time, it's very complementary to a defensive-oriented team. I just want to point out, the biggest misnomer of the 49ers in the 80s is that they weren't loaded defensively. Their defense was dominant, wasn't it? Same with their offense.
Oh, yeah. That entire team was loaded. I mean, I hated that team, so I can almost tell you all of the defensive starters, but it started with Ronnie Lott. So I want to remind you that our great friend T. Scott Jones brings you the program. We are represented and proud to be represented by Banks and Jones.
Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Talk about Pittman, Napier, guys that probably won't be at their job a year from now. Who was that guy last year, Caleb? It was Jimbo Fisher, right?
Exactly.
Now let's turn to Texas A&M, who I think is in much better position with what they have now than the cloud of buyout that was Jimbo Fisher. He may have been a great coach. He wasn't. But that buyout was going to absolutely overshadow almost anything he did.
Yes, what really stood out with Texas A&M was how intentionally quiet they were at this media days. Now, Mike Elko actually said he was proud of the quiet all season, and offensive lineman Trey Zune said he loves the silence surrounding the program. I saw you interview Josh Pate earlier in the week, Dave, and I talked about it, that he said Texas A&M is a surprise team because they still have a lot of talent. They recruited very well. They just now have a coach who I think is a much better coach. And when it's the opposite of Jimbo Fisher. Let's be honest, Dave. When Texas A&M hired Jimbo Fisher, it was kind of like when the Jets signed Tim Tebow. They were so focused on stealing all the headlines more than winning on the field, right? And they were so brash with it. They were so brash that we threw them all this money. We're going to do this. We're going to be brazen with our NIL. We're just going to talk, and it never brought out on the field. I think they've done a 180 with Mike Elko. They're basically saying we'll let Texas do all the talking. We're going to be low key here, and we're going to stick with our talent, and we're going to kind of go about our business. And very uncharacteristic of a Texas school, right?
True, but still, it's going to be Texas is going to be the dominant program in that state.
Yes, they probably will, but Texas A&M can compete.
I mean, I would
if they have the right
compete. They can, and they should.
If Oklahoma can. They can.
Right. They should be expected to win 50% of their games against a rival. I always say that. You should split. You should expect to at least split against a good rival. But in reality, they're probably going to win more like 1-4 at best, just because right now Texas is under good leadership. When's the last time they've been under good leadership? I mean,
Yeah, I disagree. I actually think Texas A&M has better leadership than Texas.
I agree. But A&M is not the same school as Texas. So, like the combination, if I'm a prospect, I'm leaning towards Texas. If I just want the coaching, I would go Elko. I totally agree with you there.
I think the one thing I think you're underrating is now Texas is the prominent state. Like Texas is to Texas A&M what Alabama is to Auburn in terms of prominence in a state, right? Is that a fair comparison?
Yes.
Or Ole Miss to Mississippi State too. Here's where it neutralizes, though. Texas A&M is always going to have the larger NIL initiative because, Dave, those oil rig guys, they're Texas A&M fans, not Texas fans. That's East Texas, man. That's that oil money, and they will buy championships.
Well, that may be, but can I share with you what I've been told by somebody that worked with their collective very closely, the 12th Man Group?
Sure.
They got a lot of Chiefs and not many Warriors. They got a lot of people who have an opinion on how they should spend their money. And there's not one person that says, this is how we're going to spend our money.
Well,
does that make sense?
Basically, that is the culture of people who got rich in oil, because you know that with Jerry Jones in Dallas. Because the point of people who got rich in oil, and I hate to sound this way, but people who get rich with something like oil, they think they're very smart because they're rich. I'm like, no, you got lucky. You moved out west and you just happened to find a gold mine of like oil. It's like you hit the lottery if you did. You're as smart as someone who hit the lottery if you got rich in oil. And it's a total wild crapshoot. But they think they're smart. So they think they know what they're doing. And that's where that issue comes. So I understand that. I think they finally all agreed that they're not smart, though, so they're taking a step back. And I think they're actually letting Mike Elko run the show right now.
If they do, they'll be in better shape because I think he's a very good coach. As a matter of fact, I would already have him maybe in the top third of coaches in the SEC. I think that highly of him. How about a little Andy Staples with On 3 coming up here momentarily? First, I got to tell you real quick about Medicare Misty. She doesn't charge you for your Medicare advice. How awesome is that?
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
And I want to remind you, Medicare Misty is licensed in almost every state. So wherever you're watching, you can take advantage of her services, and I would highly recommend you do so. Again, we want to thank our great friends at WorkTrucksLLC.com and Volunteer Auto Group. You go to volauto.com. Winners shop here for our coverage of SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. And we visited with Andy Staples of On 3. I've known this guy for about 25 years. Hard to believe. It was good to catch up and good to get some thoughts from Andy Staples, one of the national voices of college football, right here on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back. It is SEC Media Days brought to you by our friends at Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. And also we thank our friends at Volunteer Automotive Group, where winners shop. This guy's a winner. Andy Staples of On 3 joining us now. How are you, buddy?
Good.
This is one of my oldest friends in the media biz. We go back a long ways. I think we go back to when like the SEC was eight teams.
I don't believe it was 8 teams. I think we were in middle school. Well, no, I was a freshman in high school when they went to 12.
I was graduating
Okay.
in 92.
Yeah.
So I'm about 4 years older than you.
Yeah, I remember going to South Carolina's first SEC game at the Swamp.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been in the league, but that was their first year in the SEC, so it was their first time at Florida as a conference opponent. Should have won that game, too. Lost 14-9.
Are you old enough to remember that time and the A&M Missouri time? That to me, they both. I know you're old enough to remember that, but the ones that kind of felt like, oh, these are neat. Texas and Oklahoma, that feels
very different. Yeah. Now it's interesting because Texas A&M came in guns blazing, and you had the Johnny Manziel Heisman years start out.
True.
And actually, Missouri had a really good run at the beginning because we forget how good Gary Pinkel was. Like they won the East in 13 and 14, and that 13 team was really good, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same brands. I mean, you're porting the Red River rivalry into the SEC, so you're adding, think about Tennessee at Oklahoma. For Oklahoma's first conference game. That's going to be wild. And then Oklahoma turns around and goes to Auburn. Just seeing those logos together gets your blood pumping.
No doubt. If I ask you tiers of the SEC as you view it.
We were just talking about this a few minutes ago.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I like that. Who's on the uppermost tier that can win a championship this year?
Well, Georgia, Alabama, Texas. And the more I talk to people, the more I think Ole Miss might be on that tier.
I hear the same thing.
So it's interesting because I've sort of shifted the way I view this because I used to think purely input. Like, what are your recruiting rankings? How good is the raw material you're putting in? Obviously, development's important. But, watching the way Michigan won last year, I was like, okay, we need to adjust the thinking on this. Basically, what we need to be saying is how many NFL players are on each roster,
okay,
and where are they going to get drafted? Like, are they going to be a bunch of first, second, third round draft picks? Are going to be a bunch of like fifth, sixth round draft picks? What are we talking about here? And like Michigan was a great example of that. That was a team that had multiple first round draft picks, that had 13 draft picks. You go back to those Georgia teams that won the 2 previous titles, just incredibly loaded at the top, incredibly loaded with old guys that were about to go pro. That's what Ole Miss is this year. I talked to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl. He's had 20 guys with draftable grades at Ole Miss, which is very similar to Michigan last year. And that's not what they've ever been able to do before. They've never had anything like that before. You heard Nick Saban say it. When Nick Saban says he thinks that they have beefed up enough on the line to be competitive with Alabama and Georgia, I believe him. I mean, he's not just saying that for clicks. It's Nick freaking Saban.
Yeah, I don't think he needs clicks at this point in his career. Now, I agree with that. I look at the second tier, though, and I wonder, because obviously a lot of my listeners follow Tennessee, where you think they fall in that second tier?
Right at the top of it.
Okay.
Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma. Those are the ones that absolutely should be talking about making the playoff, should feel confident that if they have a good season, they'll make the playoff. And I think Tennessee especially, and Missouri especially, got schedule draws that help with that. It's still hard. I mean, look, you're Tennessee, you still have to play Alabama and Georgia. You got to deal with that. But imagine you split those games. You got a little wiggle room. I think the NC State game will be really interesting too. I think that's a pretty tough one. I think they're going to be fairly competitive in the ACC this year, so be a really good test early on for Tennessee. But I in my post-spring top 25, I had Tennessee. What if I had them number 10 or number 11? Which, if you wind up there, you make the playoff.
Yeah. You were a superstar offensive lineman at Florida. People don't know that.
Human tackling dummy.
Human tackling dummy. But in all seriousness, how much can the other guys, especially an offensive line, help a young quarterback like Nico?
Oh, a ton. And the running game itself should help Nico. And like, it's funny because you talk about, young guys. Lance Hurd's a young guy too. Lance Hurd's going to help Nico quite a bit. This is a guy who, had he not been playing for LSU last year, would have never transferred. He would just be starting at where he was. But he happened to be playing at LSU, which happens to have Will Campbell and Emory Jones coming back for their third and probably final years. And so he couldn't afford to sit for another year. Like, he needed to go somewhere where he could play. And Lance Hurd's going to be an awesome offensive tackle in the SEC. So that's a big one. Cooper Mays, I think Cooper Mays is the most important player on this team. I think keep him healthy and things are going to work. That running game is going to work. No, I don't, like, Nico being young, I'm not as worried about that after watching the bowl game. Because I felt like he just took what the defense gave him. He didn't try to overextend. He didn't try to be Superman. And that's against a defense. Like, Iowa didn't have Cooper DeJean because he was hurt, but they had pretty much the whole rest of the defense. So that's a really good defense that is exceptionally well coached. So he's dealing with an opponent where everybody's exactly where they need to be to defend him perfectly, and he's making the right choices. And I think that's very telling. So I'm excited to see what he can do because Tennessee's offense was very limited. Very. They stayed out of the middle of the field. It was dink or bomb, and then the run game, you didn't do much read option. That eliminates the RPO. If you don't feel comfortable in the read option, you don't feel comfortable with RPOs. There's so much more Tennessee can do now. And the thing is, like, Nico doesn't have to win the Heisman. If you get Hendon Hooker-like production out of Nico, Tennessee's a potential playoff team.
Yep, I agree. Andy Staples on 3 does a great job with his podcast, and people can follow you on where?
The On 3 Sports YouTube channel is where you can find the show if you would like to watch it. If you do not want to look at my face, that's fine. I understand.
He's a handsome boy.
Everywhere you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts is gone, so it's on YouTube now. But we are everywhere.
He is Andy Staples. I'm Dave Hooker. Coverage continues from SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. Stay tuned off those words. All right, so one of the things that was discussed there was tiers, and we appreciate Andy Staples for taking the time to join us. Now, here's how I'm going to define tiers, and tell me if you are okay with this. Tier 1, expected to be in the playoff. Tier 2, I think will be in the playoff. Tier 3, very well could be in the playoff. By those tiers, let me ask you, who is in Tier 1? Expect to be in the playoff.
I am with him that Georgia and Alabama and Texas are Tier 1. But Tennessee and LSU should also be Tier 1 and that they should expect to be in the playoff. And
okay. I'm more selective. Tier 1, I'm only Georgia. Because I think Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss all have some flaws, and I think they'll be battling for that second and potentially third position. So my tier is Georgia only. I expect them to be in. Now, that's my tier. Second tier, think will be in. That's a little bit different. Think will be in. I'm going to take Texas and, of course, Georgia. So I've got 2 schools on my second tier. You see, I'm kind of breaking this down.
No, you have Georgia Tier 1. So Texas and who Tier 2?
Georgia Tier 1. Well, yeah, but I think they'll be in it too. So I expect them to be in it. That's Tier 1. Tier 2, I would have Texas and Alabama. Those would be my 2 schools. And then Tier 3 will include a team that you're well aware of.
Well, so if you're separating by that, Tennessee should at least be Tier 2. And I'm gonna this isn't a shot at Andy Staples because this is everybody in media this week, and we actually had to give Greg McElroy credit on the show for this yesterday, Dave. Can I tell you my issue with people's thoughts on Tennessee? My biggest problem with it, and I wrote a column about it.
Sure.
And I said something about it yesterday. Everybody, and Andy Staples himself said it. He's thoroughly convinced that with Nico Iamaleava, Tennessee's going to look more like Hendon Hooker's offense in 2022 than Joe Milton's offense last year, right?
Yes.
Josh Heupel, and nobody's contradicted him on this, has said that Tennessee is significantly deeper on defense this year than they've ever been, right?
Yes.
What was Tennessee's record in 2022?
I think they ended up winning 11 games, right?
11-2. Finished in the top 6, would have been in the 12-team playoff. How in the world can you think that Tennessee's offense is going to return to 2022 form? Can you think their defense is deeper than it was in 2022? But then can you not think that they're actually going to make the playoff, which they would have made in 2022?
It's a great point. You can't say that just the conference is better or anything along those lines, because as a matter of fact, a lot of Tennessee's rivals are down. A lot of the teams that they're playing will be down, and their schedule is incredibly strong. I just think there's this weird hesitancy, and I'm glad you brought it up. And it was a great column, is a great column on offthehooksports.com. There's this hesitancy just to say Nico's the guy. Nobody wants to look like a fool. Nobody wants to look like the guy who drafted Todd Marinovich, which is maybe before your time. But you use the term lab a lot. This was a guy whose dad, literally, when he was 10 years old, put him on creatine and everything else, had him working out and training. He went to the NFL. He was a total burnout. So I think people are worried that they're getting on this Nico train too soon, whereas you and I have been on it a long time and feel like, frankly, you're getting on it too late.
I agree. But even if they don't want to get on my train, which is that Nico is a generational created and allowed quarterback to run Josh Heupel's offense, they're all on the train that he's at least going to return Tennessee to the 2022 offense. And Andy Stables himself, they all believe that Joe Milton held the offense back last year, right? Everybody, that's kind of a consensus among national media. If you think Joe Milton held the offense back and you think Nico Iamaleava is going to return to 2022, why is everybody predicting Tennessee's actual win-loss record to look more like 2023 than 2022?
I cannot explain that. And somebody just posted that FanDuel has changed their number to 8.5. I mean, to me, that's the easiest bet that's out there in the SEC. I thought it was 9. I
thought it was 9.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody on the message board, if it's on FanDuel at 8.5, I don't give out gambling advice. I leave that to Caleb, but I'm going to tell you, jump on that.
I thought it may have started 8.5 and then moved to 9.5. That's kind of what I had thought had happened. But
me too.
Yeah, if it's 8.5, and this is the thing, people are saying one thing about Tennessee that we are high on Tennessee. I'm not going to knock somebody who thinks Tennessee may actually have a drop-off and go 8-5. Okay, if you think that, fine, we'll have that conversation. But how can you think that, but at the same time think Nico Iamaleava is going to restore Tennessee's offense to pre-Joe Milton? Those two things don't jive with each other. They don't.
No, I agree. I mean, so their defense should be better. The running game should be better if they stay healthy up front. Nico, everybody believes in. The offense should be as good as 2022, but you don't have them in the playoff. You're right. That's a contradiction.
Yeah, it is a contradiction. It makes no sense.
You can say, I'm not ready for Nico. I don't think Tennessee's a playoff team because I'm not ready for Nico. That would be an argument that at least you could make. But saying that Nico is going to be really good and you believe in him and they're not going to make the playoff doesn't make much sense.
I totally agree. And for the record, I think we have a new topic to talk about because that is right. Tennessee's win total has dropped from May. It has dropped. It is now at 8.5. It was 9.5 in May.
Okay.
Something happened.
Now this isn't.
That's on FanDuel. On FanDuel.
Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. Because that doesn't just happen for no reason. And I'm just telling you, the national media has been relatively quiet on Tennessee. Maybe they think they got burned last year by Joe Milton. That's one thing. But when Vegas moves the number, that's a little bit different and a little bit more disconcerting, I believe. Hang tight. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Be a part of the program weekdays at 10 a.m. Stay tuned. We'll discuss that new number. Also, coming up, you don't want to miss Ron Slay. And also, Mike Griffith, we'll visit with him, who covers the Georgia Bulldogs for Dog Nation. Are they beatable? Did Kirby Smart take care of his traffic issues, throwing out some fines? We'll talk about that and more. Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
35th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
All right, we're going to talk some. Did I just eyed it? Jeremy Pruitt style? I didn't mean to do that. All right, so we're going to get to a couple of different things. Mike Griffith coming up, who covers the Georgia Bulldogs for Dog Nation. We'll visit with him. Also, Matt Moscona. We'll visit with him, who covers LSU. We love the insight that he gives us, and it's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat2ts.com, hemphousechat2ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off, HOOKED for 10% off. Again, want to thank our good friends at volauto.com for our coverage of SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. My Telluride rode perfect. It was fantastic back and forth to Dallas, and I want to thank our friends at volauto.com. Volunteer Auto Group, winners shop here. The Vols shop there, by the way, the preferred dealership so far that I can say, because I see Vols there all the time. They're right there on the Callahan location, also Maryville, Lenore City, Sweetwater, and Knoxville. They work with the Vols a lot, but I want to remind you, it's about a partnership, and that's why you go back again and again to Volunteer Auto Group, volauto.com. All right, so do we want to get into this number thing? We've had an adjustment in the win total, the over-under, Caleb, for Tennessee, or do we want to move to Ron Slay? I'll let you decide.
Let's start with the win total first, and then we'll go to Ron Slay, because this is confusing to me, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Tennessee, this is the second time FanDuel has moved Tennessee's line. It started at 8.5 wins. Then that was in February. They upped it to 9.5 wins in May after spring practice. I don't know the exact date. I just checked Twitter, and on July the 8th, it was back down to 8.5 wins, and I just checked FanDuel, and it's 8.5 wins now. FanDuel cannot get their story straight with Tennessee. I want to know what is happening to cause them to constantly, in schizophrenic fashion, switch Tennessee from 8.5 wins to 9.5 wins back and forth. Do they know something we don't, or is it because Josh Heupel is so cagey? Is Josh Heupel so successful at being this cagey that there's no way for them to know?
I think that you said something went totally left field to where I was going to go, but I think you're right. I don't think they have as good a sources as some other gambling places. I think they're schizophrenic. I don't think they're sure of Tennessee. And let's face it, you should have a mole in every big-time program if you're a reputable gambling service. Sorry. I mean, you can pay a trainer $50,000 a year and make a ton more off him than that 50 grand. Now, the direction I was going to go is, did they hear something? Should Tennessee fans be worried? So, while I agree with you, and I think you nailed it, let me throw that back at you, because Vegas is usually on the inside. We are talking about one betting book, not all of Vegas. But should Tennessee fans be at all concerned that the number has been dropped?
I think a little bit, because I think, yeah, and here's why. My explanation would have been, and I thought this was possible. I thought it was possible that their win total dropped after the SEC Media Days attendees were revealed and people saw that Nico Iamaleava and James Pierce weren't going. And maybe they thought, oh, Nico's not going to SEC Media Days. Maybe he's not as good as they think. I could see FanDuel thinking that. But if I'm scouring Twitter correctly, there are a couple accounts that say that FanDuel has set their win total back at 8.5 all the way back on July the 6th, which was a full 3 days before the SEC Media Days attendees were released. So the honest question is, what changed in that time? Nothing has really changed from May to now, except maybe Shandavian Bradley entering the transfer portal. I mean, transferring to a junior college.
It wouldn't be that. Hit that like and subscribe button now. We greatly appreciate that. Be a part of the program. The poll question is up right now on the YouTube page. It is new, and it is this. FanDuel has Vols at 8.5, lower than it was. Concern, yes. Vegas knows all. No, FanDuel is whack. So far, no, FanDuel is whack. 80% will jump on there and make some money. Let's remember this part too. Tennessee is a big betting fan base. Compared to some of the others in the country, it's probably top 5-ish of college football fan bases that like to throw down cash money. So let's say a bunch of people have followed our advice and we think Tennessee's going to be better than 8.5 and maybe better than 9 where you could have gotten it. Maybe the numbers moved because Tennessee is bet heavily. Is that a possibility? You're the gambling guy, Caleb. I defer.
That could explain why it moved from 8.5 in February to 9.5 in May. But if Tennessee's betting heavily, they're taking the over. So they're not going to move it back down to 8.5.
Okay, so I misspoke. So other people are betting against Tennessee. They're off the Nico bandwagon. Is that what's happening?
Here's what could have happened. February, Tennessee 8.5. Tennessee fans are like, oh, that's easy. I'm scooping this up all day, every day. And they all go scoop up the 8.5 for Tennessee to go over that. Because of that, FanDuel moves the line to 9.5. In response to them moving the line to 9.5, national bettors are thinking, oh, damn. 8.5 I wasn't going to take against Tennessee, but 9.5, I'm going to take the under. So then a wave of national people came in and said, let me take the under on that. So maybe FanDuel's going back down to 8.5 because of that. That's the only possibility I could see. I mean, the most pessimistic person on Tennessee I've covered, Dave, and I'm not saying this in a negative because he's actually very objective and he's very objective year to year. But our own Jimmy Hyams has been the most pessimistic on Tennessee I've covered of anybody that we speak with so far this year. He's got them going 9-3. That's his baseline. So that's the baseline, I thought.
What's the goofiest number? Is it 8.5 this year or 8.5 in 2022?
I thought it was 7.5 in 2022. Was it 8.5 in 2022?
Well, then it was completely. Either way, it was really, really bad. I thought it was an easy, but by bad I mean a bad number. On the message board, we've got people saying I've got.
Yeah, it was 7.5 in 2022.
Yeah, some people say I've got Tennessee at 10 wins. I haven't come out with my official prediction yet, but I will go ahead and tell you that it will be 9 or more. So if you want to jump on board, go ahead and do it because apparently FanDuel is offering deals.
I will go ahead and tell you that if it's not 10, it's a bust, and it's because of what I said earlier. Everybody agrees that Nico Iamaleava will return Tennessee's offense back to 2022 form, meaning they should look more like 2022 than 2024 when they got 10 regular season wins in 2022. Josh Heupel on his rounds has gone everywhere. Dave, you were at SEC Media Days this week. Josh Heupel's telling everybody that listens that this is the deepest, most talented team he's had since he's been in Knoxville. You noticing that? And he's cagey, usually. If that's the case, anything less than 10-2 or a top 10 ranking is a massive disappointment, given the fact that they've already done that.
Agreed. Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. That's right there on Cherokee Boulevard or online, qualitytirepros.com. In downtown Chattanooga, qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker said hello. Off the Hook Sports said, hey, Bo. Other than injuries, we all know going into any season, following any team, that injuries can absolutely sink a season. Other than that, which we would all give a pass for at the end of the year if there was some crazy rash of injuries, it would basically have to be Nico not even close to living up to the hype, not even playing as well as Joe Milton for Tennessee not to win 9 games. He would have to play equal or worse than Joe Milton last year for Tennessee not to win 9 games. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I agree. Derek Gowen said something, and it has triggered crazy Caleb conspiracy, because Derek says that makes me think the refs are going to screw us again with that over and under, honestly. Okay. All right. Crazy Caleb conspiracy. The juices are flowing. Now, we're talking about these win totals. You notice it moved, Dave, after the EA Sports college football game ratings have all come out, and Tennessee's been underrated and overlooked and all of that.
Yes.
So just quick yes or no before I get to my conspiracy. Do you think it's possible Vegas is taking what EA college football did into account?
Oh, my gosh, no. If they are.
Okay.
I mean, if they are, I've got something else to bleep about other than they don't give free drinks at casinos anymore.
Okay, so here's my...
If you're taking... I honestly believe... excuse me, Kev. I honestly believe that EA Sports made a mistake and just continued to double down on it. I think I think the first ranking, they left Tennessee out. Or it could be as simple as this, Caleb, because I'm so excited to play the game. Maybe they didn't have Neyland Stadium done yet. Think about that for a second. It could be as simple as that. It's under renovations, and it's all online now. You don't go to the store and buy. I guess you can. So, like, the game may have not been complete when they put the top 25 out. So Neyland Stadium wasn't done. I'm just throwing this out there. Nobody's told me this, but that's a real possibility. This game I've seen some big time mistakes in the game. This game was thrown together pretty quick.
I kind of agree. And, some people complain about the Madden gameplay, guys. I don't think the gameplay on this is going to be that great either, because they know they don't have to, because people are just so thirsty for it after 10 years. But here's where I was going with Derek's point on my crazy Caleb conspiracy, because I was wondering if that was tied to what I was going to say, because I thought the NCAA has an agenda against Tennessee, which affected the video game. We last covered FanDuel at Tennessee 9.5 in May. At some point between then and now, it's dropped to 8.5. You want to know what's happened since then, Dave?
What?
The NCAA settled its NIL lawsuit for $2.7 billion, which Tennessee had a gigantic hand in affecting. I believe that Vegas thinks the NCAA has it out for Tennessee and is going to strong arm and use their weight to try to maybe have a few things work against Tennessee this year. Maybe a couple of games where they have their voice in an official's ear. And that's why they dropped the win total from 9.5 to 8.5.
So Vegas thinks the NCAA is going to come down on Tennessee.
I think Vegas thinks
I can't go that far, Karen.
I think Vegas. What if Vegas thinks there were going to be officials that, on behalf of the NCAA, may not be fair to Tennessee on the field this year?
Moondrops Beauty says, I really hope the coaching staff knows how to use all the disrespect towards Tennessee as bulletin board material. If they can do that successfully and Tennessee plays with their hair on fire, well, look out, college football playoff. I agree with that. I think Tennessee is going to be in the college football playoff. Our friend Papa J says, put the tinfoil hat on, Caleb, right now. But Moondrops Beauty agrees with you, said she's been concerned about that. Switch it up for a second. We're going to talk basketball and football. How about Ron Slay, former Vol, right now on the program, as we love visiting with him live on Off the Hook Sports. And the coverage is brought to you by our good friends at WorkTrucksLLC.com and VolAuto.com. We're live at SEC Media Days, brought to you by WorkTrucksLLC.com, WorkTrucks with an X, LLC.com, and our good friends at Vol Auto Group, VolAuto.com, VolAuto.com. Joined by a former Vol who happens to be Ron Slay right here, joining us now, talking basketball.
In person, too.
Yes, in person.
Yeah.
So you can check out my cologne, which is fantastic. Ryan, let me ask you about this whole SEC Media Days. You've been here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing this thing for a few years. So just in general, what have been your takeaways from the first few days?
I love it, man. This first of all, the venue is great. Coming to Dallas, it is bigger. Last year, I think in Nashville, it was a little snug, a little tighter, a lot more space here in Dallas. Atlanta is the same thing. You get a lot of space, but I think, man, the coolest thing about this is, you got football on the surface. Same thing for SEC Basketball Media Day. You got basketball on the surface. Being able to have these one-on-ones with analysts, players, coaches, they come into this situation disarmed. So it's a lot of just talk. There's no games been played yet, so everybody hopes are good. So you got good confidence coming in. You talk about your team, talk about what you did in the offseason, and you get to get up under the surface of what makes them tick. I think that's one of the most important things, man, when you get to watch somebody and find out who they are behind the coach, behind the player. Like, what's your rituals? Like, what's your thing that you get away from the game? That's always interesting to me as a player, things that I wanted to share. So I kind of asked them things that I would want people to know about me if I'm trying to get my personality out, how my character is, and I'm trying to show you something that you didn't see during the season. So that's the coolest thing about being in these environments.
I do want to switch it up with basketball a little bit if I can.
Which one?
Right? Can I do that?
Okay.
Dalton Knecht's pretty good.
No.
He's like Summer League. He's doing pretty good.
Yes.
I don't know why that got dropped.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a knock.
It's just a really, really special guy that I think his impact on the program is going to be felt.
No question about it. I think, man, when you look at it and you talk about retiring jerseys and things of that nature, I know no one person that can come in and play a year, get the accolades he did, and it being questioned, should he retire as a Vol? I put that jersey up. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, man, because when you think about his impact, it was different. It wasn't expected. You heard about him, the way he was getting along with his teammates, but to go out and perform the way he did in those games, at those times, when it was a little bit stagnant, coming off the years before, when you didn't get a guy like Tyreek Key to kind of deliver, not picking on him, but just anybody that came in the portal, they didn't deliver like that. And he came in, was only 2 unanimous All-Americans last year. One was the back-to-back College Player of the Year. The other one was Calhoun Knecht. Like, it's different, man, and I think you see it. He believes in himself. I thought the boost that he needed was through Coach Barnes, that situation, that family of guys, pushing him every day, sharpening his skills, letting them know you can play on this level, being physical with him. And it all showed, showing down in the Summer League. I saw him earlier when they were in Utah or Colorado, wherever they were at first. No, they were in Sacramento. And people were like, man, he's not performing like that. He was missing shots. I said, man, just wait till he get to Vegas. You got to understand that these Summer League games, everybody's out there vying for a job. He has a job, so why would he need to press?
That's a great point.
Once when everybody else calms down and he rises to the top, you get this outburst like you're seeing from him and Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard been killing too. So I think these guys, man, their IQ, they play the way they play, and you gotta give a tip of the cap, man, the development that Tennessee had. Guys like Rod Clark, all those guys pouring into him, and the players pouring into him and letting him be who he is.
What did you learn about that coaching staff last year in Elite Eight run that maybe you didn't know before last year?
I ask the hard questions.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I think, man, what I didn't know is you always hear about coaches having belief in their guys. You got to see it last year with them. When you look back at certain situations in the SEC tournament, for one. It was a little bit of a falter going against Mississippi State. I felt like they got pumped, but to be able to respond the way they did the next week in the NCAA tournament and go on that run, that showed a lot. That showed a lot through character. That showed a lot next man up, them believing in each other, and really that it's not about me. It really, really showed. I thought the worst thing that could have happened was Santiago getting sick, not being able to get out there and produce and perform the way he wanted to. I thought that would have added a different dimension to him, and I think that would have got them past Purdue. But they lost to a good team. And Purdue that went on to the national championship. But this coaching staff is a real good one. And I thought it was going to be very difficult to replace Rob Lanier, Des Oliver, Schwartz, like that group is special. Mm-hmm. This group formed their own identity with Gainey, Rob Clark, Lewinsky, like all these guys. Brian Lynch moving up now, Lucas Campbell still being involved. Like they got some younger, good group of guys too. And I think Coach Barnes, the reason he's able to be who he is because of that staff and the belief that they have, and they show it. They show it through their play.
I was also impressed by his willingness to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And
finally.
He's not typically a guy who will run ISO, but with Dalton, he did that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of situations where I think he wants to do that, but you got to build that trust up in him. And I think the way Dalton was able to build it quickly, I thought the cheat code that they had was going overseas, being able to play and grow close, not only the players, but the coaches too. Because on the foreign land, all you got is each other. As far as the conversation, what it's going to be, you're going to eat together, you go get travel together, you go sightseeing together, everything's together. That spills back over when they get back over here. So I thought that what you were able to see in Coach Barnes, that was a byproduct of what they were able to do in Italy, carried it back over here. And at some point, you got to evolve. The game's evolving, the players evolving. The way you talk to guys has evolved. He does that, so why not evolve your play? Getting up and down faster. We need a bucket. Give it to a guy. Let him go get a bucket. Then we'll worry about the rest later. So kudos to him. Like not getting left behind.
Last thing I got for you. What did you think of the Lady Vol hire?
Loved it. I thought coming into it, I gave Danny White benefit of the doubt because you look at his track record. He hasn't made a bad hire. So why would he start now? You know what I'm saying? Especially with Vitello, how he's doing in the program, Coach Barnes doing in the program. Being able to pull the trigger quickly with Kelly and letting her go, I thought was – because you could feel it. Like something needed to change. And he brought a newfound energy, kind of like he did with Hype. Up style, tempo, playing, need more athletes. She went and got the top two out of it, and it made it do what it do. I love it, Colin.
Interesting stuff. It's good to be together. It's good to see you.
Always, man. Appreciate it.
So I have to admit, when Ron Slay first said retire Dalton Knecht's jersey, I'm thinking to myself, no. And then when it went through my head, he didn't even have to sell it to me. I thought, definitely yes. Why wouldn't you retire his jersey? Can you retire somebody's jersey that was just there 1 year?
Theoretically, you could. I don't know the standard for retired jerseys for Tennessee basketball. You know, like you've talked about this before. They can make up standards to have jerseys retired.
Can I give you the best comparison I can come up with? Maybe other than there's a lot of one and doneers. I mean, are they the one and done guys in Kentucky? They're not retiring jerseys left and right, no matter how good they are. But I'll give you one example of a guy who didn't play a long time. He just played 2 years because he redshirted his freshman year, played as a redshirt freshman, then a sophomore, then went to the NFL. That was Mike Vick. So that's a short duration, but a huge impact on the program.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a great point. Can we say Dalton
would retire Vick's number?
Can we say Dalton Knecht did for Tennessee, though, what Mike Vick did for Virginia Tech? I mean, that's a...
Well, but where's Tech now? I mean, they were more competitive and relevant because of Vic. So, yes, I agree with you, but it hasn't been long lasting.
Well, it was for a while. I mean, don't forget that after Mike Vick left in 99. Mike Vick's last year was 2000. Okay. They go to the ACC in 2004 and they won the ACC in 2004, 2007, 2008, 2010. They had top 10 finishes in 2000 in all 4 of those years. And they have a top 10 finish in 2005. So Mike Vick had a lasting impact. They carried Virginia Tech through a decade, and Dave honestly made them the class of the ACC for a while. And they were in the Big East when Michael Vick was there, to be fair. But does Virginia Tech even get into the ACC if Michael Vick's not there? Or are they one of those teams like when the Big East folds, are they stuck in limbo and having to go join like the American or something like that?
So let me leave you with this. You would or would not retire Dalton Knecht's jersey?
I would. And here's why. Tennessee has made 2 Elite Eights in history. They did it this year with Dalton Knecht, an All-American, leading them. They won the SEC regular season title. A legitimate argument can be made that in terms of accomplishments, this was the greatest season in Tennessee basketball history. And it wasn't because of a collective team. Like the 2009 team that also went to the Elite Eight, the 2010 team. Dave, you covered that team, that Bruce Pearl team. There wasn't one All-American. They were just super deep. They were loaded. They went 11 deep that year. And this was Dalton Knecht centric.
Caleb, I think Ron nailed it. I don't even think it's close. I think you played it out in your head. I did it while talking to Ron. I don't even think it's close. I think you retire his jersey because of everything that you just said. And let's not forget, if not for a guy born to be 7 feet tall and an absolute aberration of the game and what the game is now, Dalton Knecht would have been player of the year. If not for Zach Eaton being just this absolute difference maker, you're talking about Dalton Knecht being the player of the year. So I think that certainly carries a lot of weight. Coming up, Matt Moscona will join us from ESPN all over Louisiana, basically. Also, we'll have Mike Griffith. And we're waiting. If you're watching live, please hit that like and subscribe button. We are waiting for the announcement of the All-SEC team and the All-SEC prediction of finish. So that should come down to the pipe. Give me a couple minutes for a quick break. I'll be right back. If you hit like and subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate that. And you'll hear our sponsors, I know, because you told me on the message board. Please support them and tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. That's why we're here with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
his vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Want to be sure and thank our good friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? A Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. We love Rick and what he does for the program. Support our sponsors. We greatly appreciate that. So, Caleb Calhoun, we've been accused of being LSU apologist at times. We both think that Louisiana is a state that produces a ton of talent, and LSU most oftentimes gets that talent when it wants it. So that makes it easier for a coach like, I don't know, and Ed Orgeron to win a national title, which still doesn't sound right. What's up, Hook? Did I ever tell you he said that in the middle of a defensive line drill?
You told me he said it. I didn't know it was in the middle of a defensive line drill.
I'm walking onto the practice field inconspicuously because I'm a little late. And he goes, what's up, Hook? Nothing.
Let's be honest. Okay, because we know Ed Orgeron had a problem with the bottle back in the day. We know he's probably enjoying the bottle with some ladies now. Do we really think he put that thing down to win a national title? Or was he just said LSU?
I'm off the record on some things here, so I'm going to move on. So let's talk. I can't go with all I know. Let's just say that. All right. So here is Matt Moscona, who is with ESPN New Orleans, ESPN Baton Rouge. He's the one that has been ahead of the reporting at LSU for a long, long time. A great friend of the program. He is live now, brought to you by our good friends at Volunteer Auto Group and Work Trucks. I'll tell you more about Work Trucks here in just a second, but volauto.com. Winners shop here. The Vols, I've seen them shopping there as well. When you start shopping for your next vehicle, you'll want more than just a dealership to sell you something. You'll want a partner in the process, someone to help you find the right car and the right deal. Just go to volauto.com. Check them out of that Calhoun location, but they've also got Lenore City, Sweetwater, and Knoxville. Proud supporter of the Vols. volauto.com. If you don't purchase your next car there, then I've got to question your fandom. All right, let's get to Matt Moscona right now on Off the Hook Sports. Welcome back as we broadcast live from SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas, brought to you by our good friends at WorkTrucksLLC.com. If you're a contractor, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. And volauto.com. That's where the Vols shop. That's where you should shop as well. Volunteer Automotive Group. Matt Moscona joins us now. Did I do okay on the name, Matt?
Nailed it.
Sweet.
My boy Dave.
Matt is with basically ESPN every city in Louisiana.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're getting ready to pick another one up. I can tell by the look on your face.
No, I was just thinking, I think there's maybe an ESPN affiliate up somewhere in North Louisiana that hasn't picked me up yet, but in due time, yeah.
I think you have some of the best opinions and takes in the entire SEC. So I want to get kind of a big picture thought. Of course, you cover LSU primarily, and we'll discuss them. But LSU, I believe, is one of those teams that is on an upper tier that can win a championship. Which teams would you have on that tier, and would you have LSU on this tier?
So I think let's start with the easy ones. Georgia and Texas. I think everyone starts there. I think Georgia's still the most talented team in college football, and they've earned the benefit of the doubt. Texas was a playoff team a year ago. They returned everybody. They've added some really nice pieces via the portal. Of course, Isaiah Bond would be a nice target for Quinn Ewers, and I think their schedule. It's almost. If you haven't looked at it. It's almost like the SEC schedule makers went to Texas and said, "Here, pick your schedule. What would you like to play this year?" Because it is a path paved in gold. So I would be very surprised if those two are not in a playoff. After that, I think there's a group of 5 teams. It's Alabama and LSU and Ole Miss and Missouri and Tennessee, and I think I did that alphabetically. Because Ole Miss, Mississippi, not O. But anyway,
I got it. I was a writer back in the day.
So there you go. With that group, Dave, I always look at, okay, who has the fewest questions against the most manageable schedule? That's just my sort of gauge that I use at the beginning of a season. And Ole Miss, by far, has the most manageable schedule of that group we talked about, and they return a ton of talent that went ham in the portal. So I think my top 3 in the league are Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. I just think LSU is interesting because of the 3 letters and the brand they've built, and a lot of people consider LSU an elite team. But, man, you lost a ton on offense, and the defense was quite literally the worst defense in the history of the program last year. So you got to be better. How much better can they be? I don't know the answer to that. If they figure that out, they figure out defense, yeah, LSU can be a 10-win team and can be in a 12-team playoff. It's a big if.
Well, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you liked the Brian Kelly hire when it was made.
Love
right?
it. Yes, still do.
Okay, so you still like it. How about the fans? Have they pulled back at all, or is the honeymoon period still ongoing?
I don't know that there's really a honeymoon in Baton Rouge. They expect you to win. It's just LSU's become accustomed to it. The problem LSU's had, since 2003, the only program that has won more national championships than LSU is Alabama. LSU's won 3 and played for a 4th. So they've had immense success at the highest level. LSU hasn't been able to avoid the lulls. Ed Ogeron's last 2 seasons, they were 5-5 and then 6-7. Les Miles had a 4-loss season or 5-loss season in 2008. Those are the things that they haven't been able to always avoid in the dips. So the expectations are always high, but realistically, you also have to understand that LSU, about once every 5th year, has that kaboom. But everything else feels like it's that perpetual 9-3, 8-4, and then you're waiting for the boom. I think the big boom could come in 2025, the 2025 season for LSU. If Garrett Nussmeier comes back for a 5th season and a lot of that stuff's in place. I'm not sure that I think this 2024 team is the championship team. But for Brian Kelly, people are still excited about it. I mean, he's reinvigorated culture around that program and stability, and there's expectation, and they've recruited well. So, yes, I think people are still very, very happy with Brian Kelly.
The state is pretty easy to recruit well, though. Do you like how he's locked down those borders?
His biggest, if I were to say Brian Kelly had 2 big mistakes when he was hired. One was he didn't retain Corey Raymond on staff, who was the defensive backs coach who built DBU, was a great recruiter. There were a couple of other staff hires that I could look at and said that was a mistake. The other, while Brian Kelly came to Baton Rouge, I think he knew he was going to have to prioritize Louisiana. I still don't think he realized how much you had to prioritize it. In his first class at LSU, I believe there were like 13 states represented in the recruiting class. I mean, the LSU got on a plane and signed a 3-star cornerback out of Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. Like, I could throw a rock from my house and hit a 3-star cornerback. It's just there's no reason to leave the state for things like that. And then you're also going to end up getting guys from Louisiana who grew up wanting to give an arm to play in that stadium and wear that uniform. So I think it took 2 cycles for him to really understand it, but now he's locked in on it. He's made up his staff of coaches that know the state of Louisiana, that are putting inroads, and 25 and 26 are bumper crop classes in the state. That I think will be the 2 classes that shape LSU's next championship team.
Do you think SEC schools in general, and the fact that Louisiana is contiguous to Texas, do you think SEC schools will try to recruit Texas more and more and more now that they have a footprint?
I think everybody tries to recruit Texas no matter what. I think it's just a matter of, because there's so many players, and even though there's a bunch of schools in Texas, they can't take everybody. So you're going to cherry pick at times and get the right players. So I don't know that we're going to see any more recruiting in Texas than we already have. Maybe it makes more inroads as some of the talent becomes more familiar with some of the SEC schools. But I mean, I still think you're going to see all the neighboring and bordering schools go into Texas. I mean, Houston and East Texas is so big for LSU, Dave. It's the amount of players they've gone in from Grant Delpit and Caleb on Chasson, those guys over the years. Jamal Adams out of Dallas. I mean, LSU has always gone into those areas to get players, and they'll continue to do so.
Great stuff. Matt Moscona, as he
Oh,
is.
so close. You had it right the first time.
Matt Moscona.
No.
Matt Scone.
Matt
Moscona.
There it is. You nailed it the first
Matt
time,
Moscona.
and then the vowels get everybody, man. There's so many vowels.
You should just have like a last name after a prostitute. That's what you should do, like Hooker. It's very easy.
That is easy.
This
This is Dave Hooker. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
He's Matt. I'm Dave. Have a fantastic day, everyone. We'll be right back from SEC Media Days. So, do you think, like Matt, that LSU is a year away, Caleb?
No, but I don't think that means they'll win a national title this year. I think LSU is. They should be like Alabama and Georgia, Dave, where they're perpetually there. Like, and what I mean by that is like they're upset when they don't win the national championship. You know what I mean? And he brought up
to me entering any year. Well, you do lose a Heisman. Now, okay, in all fairness, nobody went into 1998 after Tennessee lost Peyton Manning and said that they were going to win a championship. As a matter of fact, I think they were 13th maybe in the nation. So, LSU just lost a Heisman winner. Maybe there's reason to pump the brakes a little bit in Baton Rouge, Red Stick.
Did Alabama not expect to win the national title after they lost Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, or Devontae Adams? I mean, it's LSU is at that level, and look, he brought up how they haven't been able to avoid the loss. Funny enough, outside of Alabama, is there anybody's resume in the 21st century outside? Is there any program you would have rather been football-wise outside of LSU? If you could be a fan of any team outside of Alabama since the start of the 21st century, you pick LSU. And
yes,
I think easily. What's kind of interesting about this whole thing is the whole reason they couldn't avoid the loss was, well, let's talk about who they had as head coach those two times. The fact that they won national titles with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron means that they're immune to incompetence in a certain way because there's so much talent in the area. I think Brian Kelly's in a similar situation to Lincoln Riley, Dave, at USC, which is both of them had great first years in 2022 at their respective schools. A lot of hype entering last year. Now, Brian Kelly's not as reviled at this point as Lincoln Riley, because Lincoln Riley I don't know how you can go this long and be that bad on defense as a head coach. But I think that
I really don't either. And can I share a quick story that's kind of out of left field?
Sure.
So I was standing next to, I can't even remember who it was now all of a sudden, but I was standing next to somebody and Josh Heupel said, "Now don't paint me as an offensive coach." Now, I thought that was very insightful. He doesn't want to be painted as Lincoln Riley. And don't think that Lincoln Riley's resume wasn't in his mind when he came up with that concept of, I don't want to be known as an offensive coach. He's still known as an offensive coach until his defense is above average, until it is maybe even elite or wins a championship. But I found that very interesting that he made sure to say that, and I bet he said it more than once, that I heard it one time.
Well, I think he actually pays attention to Lincoln Riley because, let's be honest, Lincoln Riley's whole career trajectory comes from him replacing Josh Heupel after Heupel was fired at Oklahoma. And I think Josh Heupel has a bit of a personal vendetta, not against Lincoln Riley, but, kind of Michael Jordan level, taking that personally. So, yeah, I think that, okay, we look at a Josh Heupel having a drop-off after 2022. Okay, he inherited such a mess in 2021. He's already got the program rolling. You look at a Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly, neither one of them inherited near the same mess that Josh Heupel inherited. And they both had splash first years, just missing the playoff. There is no reason they shouldn't have been better last year, both of them, and they both got worse. And I think people are kind of wondering, look, LSU opened the checkbook for Brian Kelly. LSU thought what I thought, which is if we had some sort of a competent coach, we could have a dynasty like Alabama because of how much talent we have down here. I think they thought they were getting a Saban situation with Brian Kelly because of how loaded that state and talent is. And I know they had Nick Saban in the early 2000s, but that wasn't LSU of LSU now. The facilities weren't the stuff. You can look at the whole research on that, Dave. You know about it. LSU had practiced on high school stadiums before Nick Saban took over there in 2000 because their facilities were so darn bad. So it was a little bit different. Different LSU program now. There was no excuse. Yeah, no excuse for them not to have a Saban smart level dynasty. And I think that they thought that's what they could get, and they're already upset that they haven't gotten it yet.
Fair enough. All right, coming up, Mike Griffith will give us his insight into the Georgia Bulldogs. And specifically, I want to discuss with Caleb the idea that a collective is now going to fine Georgia players because they can't drive. Okay. I guess that'll work. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports. And hit like and subscribe because we are patiently awaiting the all-SEC list and the prediction of finish from the SEC. That is being compiled. My votes are in. So with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. More after this. Off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. 23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Welcome back to the program, live from part of the way back from Dallas, Texas, as our coverage of SEC Media Days brought to you by our good friends at volauto.com. Volunteer Auto Group winners shop here, and they do. The selection is unbelievable. I drove a fantastic Kia Telluride to Dallas and back. Super comfortable, big enough where I could lay down in the back seat and actually slept in a car. That never happens. That's the kind of selection they have. Support our sponsors, and if you support the Vols and you don't buy your next vehicle at volauto.com, I don't know what's wrong with you. 5 locations. Volunteer Auto Group, winners shop here. Mike Griffith of the Knox. Look at me back in the day, slipping back in my News Sentinel sports page days. I almost said Mike Griffith of the Knoxville News Sentinel. No, Mike Griffith is of Dog Nation. He covers Georgia and is also, I believe, the president of the Football Writers Association of America. It's a great all-around dude. Here is his thoughts on Kirby Smart saying that they might actually start fining Georgia players or have started fining Georgia players who can't drive. Here's Mike, Off the Hook Sports. A coverage of SEC Media Days also brought to you by Work Trucks. If you're a contractor, just look at the website, Work Trucks, LLC, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Here's Mike Griffith. Welcome back as we broadcast live from SEC Media Days in Dallas, Texas. Still doesn't sound right. Mike Griffith of Dog Nation joins us. Are we in Dallas?
We've been here before, haven't we? I think we did this once before.
Oh, yeah, there was a Cotton Bowl or two.
There's no video of that. Thank goodness.
Video of that. Oh, that's golden stuff. I'd forgotten all about that.
I probably shouldn't have reminded you.
No, sometimes you go to SEC Media Days and you're just like, what city am I in?
Right.
But we've seen Oklahoma and Texas, and we've visited with their media, and I'm just wondering, as big as they are, do they understand what they're getting into?
Not really.
I don't think they do.
No, not really. You know, they still think they're a big deal, and listen, they are, but relative to other programs in the league, and not really. I think they need to earn their stripes, and I'm not sure Oklahoma will. I mean, it's a 500 program maybe in the league. I'm thinking they're getting outbid for players by Missouri now. And Texas, I mean, they've come in with a Texas-sized ego. I mean, just when you thought the Florida Gators had lost their swag, somebody comes in that talks as much. that hasn't done as much. And so it's going to be really interesting to me to see how Texas handles this week-to-week challenge in the SEC. All the pressure they're putting on themselves, Dave.
Tennessee doesn't, their head coach, Josh Heupel, doesn't say as much.
No.
Where does he rank among, by design, most boring coaches out there?
You know, I don't find Josh boring. I like to read between the lines, and I like to evaluate him on his teams. And he's got a quiet sway to him.
He does.
I mean, he's a dude. This guy won a national title. He's a Heisman Trophy runner-up.
And he's wearing Nikes with a suit.
I like Heupel. I like his game. I think he's a fantastic fit for the University of Tennessee because I thought Philip Fulmer was a little bit like that too. A little bit of that offensive line, a lot of confidence. I don't want to say smug, but Philip knew that he had a lot of talent. I think Josh knows he's going to put a lot of points on the board. And this year, I think the defense at Tennessee, Dave, is going to have a stinger.
I got the feeling from listening, I know you're in the media room a lot. I got the feeling from listening to Josh Heupel, he likes his secondary more than most of us outside the program.
Well, sure. And this is a team that's grown together and gotten better. You know, because early on it was all about the offense, right? Now I've seen this defense take steps, and I don't think people really recognize just how far along Tennessee's come. Not just on the front, but to your point, in secondary as well. And if you've got a premium pass rusher, that makes all the difference in the world for those young corners and safety. I expect Tennessee to be a contender this year. I think they're going to upset a couple teams that maybe people don't see coming.
Mike with Dog Nation, he covers the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
I would assume that none of the Georgia players were allowed to drive the bus to SEC Media Days. Would that be that? Because there's, I mean, you know, things have happened down there. I wouldn't want anybody to get in trouble.
Well documented. You know, one of the more groundbreaking stories that I thought came out of here, though, because the big question was, what are they going to do about this? Right? It's however many in the last 2 years. Obviously, a well-documented tragedy a couple of years ago. What is Kirby going to do about this? Are they looking the other way? Are they going to talk? And the answer is no. They've done what they can with proactive education. They've done what they can with bringing in Georgia State troopers, local police. You know, Kirby's made a lot of people run stadium steps. Guys have been suspended for games. The next step was fines, Dave. And it's interesting to me because just a couple of years ago it was all about the NIL and these players need this money and they're so deserving. And now that these unintended consequences have arrived, we have these new world problems, right? So we need new world solutions. And if you're going to treat these guys like NFL players by paying them, then you have to penalize them and hold them accountable like NFL players get held accountable. And they're hitting them in the walls. Now, will this be a trend, Dave, or do you think, and you've covered recruiting, or is this something that programs are going to use against Georgia?
I actually think they'll use it against them. I think it's a smart move. I love it. I want to shake Kirby Smart's hand for it. But I think it'll be used against him in recruiting.
It's something that he has to do because it will also be used against him if they continue to have off-field issues that put the general public at risk.
But I will tell you this, if my son comes to me and says, I got this school that's going to find me if I get in trouble driving a car, that's where I want him to go. I want him to go where there are consequences.
But who's making the decision, you or him?
Well, that's very true. Hopefully I have a say in the matter. So, Mike, give me the teams out of the SEC that can realistically win the national championship this year.
Wow. Georgia, Texas. I'd say I'm not buying Ole Miss. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid.
You're not buying Alabama with that Saban talent still and a new look?
Some Saban talent, maybe not the depth. And when you open things up like I feel like Kalen DeBoer's doing, and there's a possibility. I suppose you leave that potential open, but I feel like the feel-good, good coach, happy coach thing only goes so far. At some point, I think you got to have guardrails. And I'm not exactly sure if I think that Jalen Milroe can be consistent. Now, I say that having watched Jalen Milroe outplay Carson Beck in the SEC title game. But I also say that having watched Jalen Milroe run the long play when the season was on the line. So I do think he's going to be improved. I'm not sure the receiver talent. They no longer have Jermaine Burton or A.D. Mitchell. I'm not sure, and neither did Isaiah Bond, transferred to Texas. So I'm not sure that he has the supporting cast offensively to do the things that he needs to do, and he may be running a little bit more. So I'm a little skeptical of Alabama. While I think they're dangerous, and while I think Kalen DeBoer is a great coach, and I think we'll see some big numbers from Jalen Milroe, I don't know that we'll see the level of consistency that we saw under typical Nick Saban teams.
Mike Griffith, Dog Nation, live from SEC Media Days in Dallas. Still sounds wrong. More after this off the Sports.
So there's Mike, and he says that Tennessee is a contender this year. He means contender to make the college football playoff. I don't know that he means contender to win a national championship. I don't want to put words in his mouth. The question I have for you is the NFL is pretty simple, right? If you don't make the playoffs, you had a failure of a season. If you make the playoffs, you're kind of pretty okay. I mean, it depends on expectations and what you had, and I get that, and there can be sidebar stories and all of that. Will college football be that simple, where if you don't make the college football playoff and you're an elite program, you have fallen short of goal? Or will we justify from year to year and say, oh, this is why Alabama didn't make it or Georgia didn't make it? Because when you talk about 12 teams, Caleb, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. See, I don't know how they're going to look at this because football, with basketball, Dave, just to bring it to college basketball, when Mike Krzyzewski was at Duke, if they didn't win a national title, people weren't out there saying, oh, that's a total disappointment. They didn't win a national title, because people understood in an NCAA tournament that you have to win 6 games in college basketball with 40-minute games and a tip-off. I mean, anything can happen in 1 week. But in the NFL, I think people sometimes give a break because there's so much parity in the NFL. I mean, we know this. Tom Brady lost plenty of times to way lesser teams at home in the playoffs. That happened a lot. He lost to Joe Flacco at home in the AFC title game in 2013. Joe Flacco beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Okay. But we understand the NFL is so designed by parity. College football, parity is not the name of the game in college football. There are better teams and there are worse teams. Football as a sport is not like basketball, where in a one-game setting, the better team is almost still always going to win in football. So I don't think that teams are going to – I don't think it's going to be as easy to give coaches and teams a pass if they lose games in the college football playoff, if they lose early when they have a top 4 team in talent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can roll with that. My question, too, to take it the next step, is how far away are we from a coach getting fired after making the playoffs? Will there be a coach out there that he manages to get into the playoffs just barely, but he's had a horrible season, expectations are high? I mean, let's face it, if you're an Ohio State or an Alabama or Georgia or what Tennessee can soon become, you are expecting year in and year out to compete for championships, not just compete for a top 12 finish. So I wonder how far we are from that, because there have been coaches. Well, I mean, if you want to look to the NBA, I mean, there have been coaches who have lost their job 1 year after winning a championship, for goodness sake.
Not just the NBA, the NFL did that too. You know that, Dave. You're a Cowboy fan. You know that better than anybody. I would say
that was a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to that.
Yes, there was. I would argue that it kind of depends. Funny enough, John Calipari, of all people, lost his job after making the playoffs with the New Jersey Nets. And that's because they got swept by the Bulls in the Jordan era. I think you might end up seeing – I do think you're going to end up seeing that, but I don't think any coach would ever get fired during the playoff. I don't. I think they would get fired maybe after making the playoff, but I don't think they would get fired during the playoff. I don't think that's
during. No, not during. After.
That would be hilarious.
Did somebody eke in, get beat 49-3, and be fired after?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coaches get fired after making the NCAA tournament all the time in basketball, so absolutely they could. And so it's I think that's definitely possibly going to happen. And so I think coaches can now lower level coaches, no, coaches like the ones that, let's be honest, Dave, there's going to be a group of 5 team make the playoff every year. And that's like those smaller conference schools that make the NCAA tournament. That is their equivalent of a national championship, isn't it? Like, hey, remember that year we made the college football playoff? And I think that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with that. That actually helps make the sport more fun for everybody. There's tiers. Those schools aren't going to win the national title, but hey, what's wrong with getting in and maybe getting blown out every year 50-0 by Georgia? Those coaches won't get fired.
I guess not. Yeah, you shouldn't ever get fired for making the playoff. Now, I will say this. I think they're one expansion away from it being a real thing. If it's a 16-team playoff at one point, or if it's even more, then I think that could be a possibility, but not at 12. Lane Kiffin just decided to put Paul Feinbaum on full blast. And, we love both of those guys, both Tennessee guys. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. They've got daily updates at Sports Treasures TN, often daily updates. They're all over the place. Sports Treasures, they're in North Knoxville. Please tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. That is why we're here. We remind everyone that we are represented by the one, the only Banks and Jones. Lane Kiffin blast Paul Feinbaum up next. Hit like and subscribe. Also on our YouTube channel, here we go. And I want to answer the question that Bulldog Bark has. But first, in honor of Texas barbecue, the best style of barbecue sauce is ketchup-based, mayo-based, vinegar, or mustard-based. What say you, Caleb?
Dave, I am from Memphis, Tennessee. We do a dry rub. We don't do barbecue sauce. We make the best barbecue in the world.
Okay. But if you had to pick a sauce?
I like vinegar-based, if I had to pick a sauce. But I don't need sauce. We smoke our ribs and put a dry rub on it. And no place competes with the city of Memphis in barbecue.
I hear you. The best barbecue does not need a sauce. But if you're going to have a sauce, it's the Carolina barbecue sauce.
That was such an offensive question you asked me. I am triggered. I am absolutely triggered, Dave. You asked me about barbecue sauce, a Memphian.
The show represented by Banks and Jones. We're waiting for the prediction finish from the SEC, also the all-SEC team, and I think Tennessee is going to be well represented on that group. Quick over-under, how many players you think Tennessee will get in that group, Caleb? I'm going to say Tennessee. I'm going to put the over-under at 5.5 players on the all-SEC team. Let's discuss.
I'm not going that high. No, I'm going to go 3.
We just hold tight. So much for the tease. I'll have my answer at least. Stay tuned. The show represented by Banks and Jones.
Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker as SEC Media Days coverage continues. Also, breaking news from a young man that I covered back in recruiting that now has a new career ahead of him, a local East Tennessean. So that's pretty cool. Local guy done good. We love those stories. But first, let's get to Lane Kiffin. How about Lane Kiffin? I had a chance to visit with Lane. Lane lost his father over the weekend, Monty, and I just wanted to say condolences, Lane. And he is not comfortable in media days type situations, so we didn't get to chat. But it was an incredible loss, and I hated that for him. I do think, though, that Monty would be proud of his son and what he's become. And I wanted a chance to tell Lane that, but I didn't get that opportunity because I don't think he would have been as proud back in 2010, Caleb. I think there was a lot of growing that had to do, but Lane Kiffin just decided to go all crazy rogue on Paul Feinbaum. Can we pull that up?
Yeah, let's pull it up. This is Lane Kiffin calling out Paul Feinbaum after Paul Feinbaum talked about his time at USC. For those who don't remember, Paul Feinbaum called Lane Kiffin the Miley Cyrus of coaches when he was right before he got fired at USC.
Ouch.
So here comes a little fun Lane Kiffin going back at Paul Feinbaum.
Game day, you had to make your big splash, and they were watching it because I know the other person in the room.
Oh, can we get some more volume off that?
And you said, "What a joke I was! I'm the Miley Cyrus."
Oh, let's go ahead and restart that. I got it pumped now. Restart
Okay,
that.
right here.
Here we
All
go.
right.
Make your big splash, and they were watching it because I know the other person in the room that was watching it with them. And you said, "What a joke I was! I'm the Miley Cyrus of college football coaching, and I should be fired." And they looked at each other, and later that night I was fired.
Yeah, by the way.
So, but hey, look what happened. I would have never gotten to work for Coach Saban. All these other things wouldn't happen. So I appreciate you for helping getting me fired. Thank you.
Look at what you're doing today. You're predicted to go to the playoffs. And look at Miley Cyrus. She's had a nice comeback.
So you're wrong on that. I mean, you put me down with that. So really, I don't really know what you're good at. Like you predicted that Coach Saban was done. That didn't happen. You basically said Miley Cyrus stinks, and she's still going.
Yeah.
I love that.
Wow.
I love that.
Like and subscribe button now. That started off as playful sort of banter. That was not playful banter by the end. Lane Kiffin was he wanted to make a statement. That's a guy that thinks he's got something. That's a guy that thinks he might even have the job at Florida next year. That's a guy that feels really good about where he stands to go call Paul Feinbaum out like that.
I totally agree. Just to throw a subtle dig, when Paul Feinbaum said that about Miley Cyrus 12 years ago, Miley Cyrus was young enough for Lane Kiffin during that time. She's probably too old for him now, but sorry. But yeah, that was very personal. And it was kind of hilarious. You know, the great thing about Lane is he almost belongs on SNL, Dave, because he's so good at saying something that makes everybody laugh, but he says it so seriously. You know what I mean? Like, you remember those SNL skits where Will Ferrell would not bat an eye laughing, but everybody around him is dying laughing at that moment, and you just can't hold yourself. And what makes it funnier is Will Ferrell's just not moving, like it is acting like it's totally unfunny.
Yeah,
that's lame.
I shouldn't do this, but based off that, I want to put Ole Miss back in that one tier.
It was great. It was so great. I loved it
because it's so Lane. It leads me to book. He got so much more comfortable in the 2009 season before, and I was like, "Why are you comfortable now when things aren't going well?" The reason was he figured out Jonathan Crompton. And it wasn't on display publicly until that Georgia game, if you remember. And no, I'm not taking a shot at our Georgia listener who's on board now. But that was a stunner to everybody. Lane had figured him out. So he knew good things were coming. When you know good things are coming, you can accept the tough times in between. So Lane felt confident even before we knew he should. He's feeling confident right now. And we're going to find out if he should or not this season.
Oh, I agree. Now, Dave, here's my question to you about Lane. Because, right, he was feeling confident. Then he went to USC. The disaster happened. He got fired. He's confident again because of last year. Is Lane Kiffin somebody who, unfortunately, gets too confident once he has success and doesn't know how to handle it well?
Yes. Pride and ego will always be his elixir. And I believe that he takes steps to rein that in. I see all kinds of tweets from him that are very insightful, and there are too many of them, inspirational type tweets. There are way too many of them for him just to be throwing them out there and trying to change his perception. And I've also talked to people that believe off the record he is a completely changed individual from some of the goofiness that you heard that went on at Tennessee. So,
and Miley Cyrus did get her first Grammy this year, by the way. So is that an omen for Lane Kiffin going to win a national title?
Is that going to be a column on offthehooksports.com? I would read that column.
I mean, you know, what's funny was that was unfair to Miley Cyrus 11 years ago. That was when Miley Cyrus was doing her drug-infused albums where she was going crazy, and everybody's like, oh my God, she's not classy. I'm like, I love it. I loved that Miley. That Miley was awesome. That was the best Miley. Bring Mike Will made it Miley back. okay, when she was doing songs with Juicy J. Yeah, that's right.
I will let me throw this out. Pride and ego can trip you up and make you fall. So my question is, just theoretically, Billy Napier wins 8 games this year. Okay. Keeps his job. Lane Kiffin is at Ole Miss another year because another great job doesn't come open. Has he done the recruiting necessary to support his future teams? Or in his mind, is he thinking, I've done this, I've figured this out, I'm ready to go somewhere else? That's where the pride could trip him up, and you got to be careful with ego. Does that make sense?
Yes. Do you not think that Ole Miss has the NIL collective to be able to do in the transfer portal once again what they did this past year? Do you think that's a one-time thing?
No. I think they can do that, but I talked to a lot of people in recruiting circles. The recruiting aspect is high school recruiting is every bit as important now with the transfer portal as it was. Do you know why, Caleb? Because you get to know these guys. You get to know their character a little bit. So when they come up in the portal, it's not the first time you've heard of John Smith. I mean, do you think that Lance Hurd entering the portal was the first time Tennessee had heard of him? No, everybody had heard of him. Everybody recruited him out of high school. So I actually think college football recruiting is as important or more important to get to know the kids early if they come out in the transfer portal.
Well, when I do my hot seat later this year, because Lane is what you're basically saying is Lane is taking a gamble on this year to hope that he gets maybe the Florida job, but a more high profile job next year. Looking at it, we'll have a hot seat convo before the season starts, and we got to look at the primary schools, Dave, the elite schools, the better schools in Ole Miss where coaches are on the hot seat, because somewhere one of them is bound to be fired. Because all I can think of right now is Billy Napier at Florida. Although I'm going to say it, Mario Cristobal should be on the hot seat just because of what he did last year at Miami. And I would love Lane Kiffin in Miami. That's what I want to see. I want Lane Kiffin in Miami.
I would like that. I would take Florida, but I would like that. Now, a crazy conspiracy theory, Caleb, is Lane Kiffin also saying this knowing that maybe a Paul Feinbaum is close to retirement and he doesn't have to worry about him into the future, whether or not he's at Florida or wherever he might be?
I think Lane Kiffin is just like me, petty and savage, and he wants to, and when people annoy him, he wants to undercut them in a very negative way. And I can respect that.
Fair enough. Okay. How about a little Uncle Dave story time? Randall Cobb has decided to move on with his career. Randall Cobb, for those that don't know, a little bit younger, was a standout player at Alcoa High School. They've got an airport. It's right next to Knoxville. And Knoxville happens to be the place where the University of Tennessee is. But instead of playing football at the University of Tennessee, Randall Cobb had a superstar career at the University of Kentucky, and then went on to a standout career in the NFL. It goes down as one of the 2 biggest misses, probably the second biggest miss behind Patrick Willis, the linebacker that Tennessee decided not to take. Now, Caleb, I can give you some insight into this recruitment, maybe more than you want to know. Would you like to know how Tennessee missed out on Randall Cobb?
I've always wanted to know, and I want your insight on it, because to this day, I think this is one of the biggest indictments of a coaching staff of all time was to miss out on him.
Okay. I'll tell you. One, there was one coach on the staff that was 100% sold on Randall Cobb. That was Trooper Taylor. 100% sold from the get. Wanted to offer him months before. There were 3 or 4 others that were 50-50. Ultimately, the decision makers, those were the Philip Fulmers of the world, decided he wasn't good enough. Then the class didn't completely fill out the way that you thought it would. So you go to Randall Cobb in late December, January-ish. Okay, you're undergoing a coordinator coaching change. Who is a candidate to be that coach, that new coordinator? Who's the candidate, Caleb?
Is this? Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, Trooper Taylor with David Cutcliffe leaving. Yes.
So somebody maybe got a text while they were covering a recruiting all-star event that Trooper Taylor is going to Oklahoma State. That's when the Randall Cobb to Tennessee resurrection, which is what it would have had to be, would have occurred. And it wasn't going to occur once Trooper was gone. But I will tell you this. I asked Trooper, I said, would you have gotten him? He goes, if I'd have stayed? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah. Definitely got him. No question.
Wow. And you know what's crazy? I fully believe him. And I also fully
believe. Who did they hire in place?
Dave Clawson, which got Fulmer fired. Not that Clawson, and I have no doubt that Dave Clawson knows offense well. There were dynamics with what Dave Clawson does that did not fit with what Philip Fulmer likes to do. And it was a catastrophe. I wanted Trooper Taylor promoted to offensive coordinator back in that time. He was Cutcliffe's understudy. Everything I had read, and Dave, you were closer to the program, but I had read that David Cutcliffe had basically taken Trooper Taylor under his wing, right? To kind of make him the OC in waiting.
Yes. No, totally agree. When Tennessee was looking for a coach and they called David Cutcliffe, help me. It wouldn't have been Pruitt, the one before that.
Oh, you mean between Fulmer after Kiffin left? Between Kiffin and Dooley?
Yes. Okay, yes. I know for a fact that Trooper Taylor was one of the very first coaches called when Tennessee expressed interest in David Cutcliffe to come back to the program and be the head coach. Trooper Taylor, I believe, would have been the offensive coordinator. I know he would have been on the staff. That staff was being assembled, and then Mike Hamilton lost all of his power. I'm not saying it would have been David Cutcliffe, but it very well could have been David Cutcliffe, Caleb.
Which would have been perfect for Tennessee. David Cutcliffe as head coach, Trooper as offense coordinator. David Cutcliffe, you don't know, he may not have been there that long. I have to say this. Tennessee's mishandled. This is kind of a sad story because you got to look back at Trooper Taylor. One of the greatest rising young stars in college football coaching in the mid-2000s, right? One of the greatest rising young stars. He went to Tennessee as a running backs coach in 2004 and coached 2,000 yards rushers. He then moves to receivers coach in 2006, and Robert Meacham sets the all-time receiving record at Tennessee. He's clearly on the up and up. Tennessee doesn't do right by him, which basically, unfortunately, set his career back so far because had they done right by him, he could have been a head coach by this point, and he was very qualified. And it didn't just undercut his career. It got Philip Fulmer fired because had Trooper Taylor been promoted, it could have worked. You're right, Randall Cobb at Tennessee. I mean, there are a lot of players that Trooper Taylor was able to scout. And from what I understand, he knew it better than most. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, he had the same problem at Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy flat out lied to him and told him he'd call plays, and then he couldn't, and never listened to him with evaluating talent whatsoever. And
Troop really regretted not being in the SEC anymore. And so what happened to Troop? Troop went to Arkansas State. Now, there were some family reasons, and Troop, to give you some background, deeply religious, never smoked a cigarette, never had a drink of alcohol, never done any drugs. So, as far as integrity, he's right up there with any coach I've covered. So when he says this, I believe it. He went to Arkansas State so he could coach his son, who was involved in a very serious issue that I don't want to get into, and was also there while his wife pursued her, I believe, doctorate. So the take was he has the opportunity for some family time while still being a coach. Now, was that because there wasn't a job out there, or he was viewed as not as hot of a commodity as he was in the time you're referring to? Probably a little bit of both. I highly doubt if some school would have come calling and so you've got to be the head coach. Will you leave Arkansas State? No, my wife has a 10 o'clock physiology class. I mean, you're not going to stay there at Arkansas State for the right job in college coaching. I don't think. I respect Trooper a lot, and maybe that would be his stance, but I don't think most people would do that.
So what happens, Dave, if Trooper Taylor's promoted to offensive coordinator and Tennessee lands Randall Cobb? Do they put him at quarterback?
No. They were not going to put him at quarterback. They were going to put him at receiver. What happens at Tennessee, though, is there's probably 2 or 3 more guys that I can't remember that flipped because Trooper Taylor left. There was one year in which he got out of the 25. Well, there were 25 commitments, 25 signees, and somebody in Tennessee's recruiting office, I said, this is antiquated, but used to say this guy recruited this guy. Now it's more of a collective team effort. But back then you attributed it to one guy. And I said, how many was Trooper involved in? He goes, well, he's this guy. And we're getting up to like 10 or 12. He goes, Dave, basically all of them.
Well, what about this then? Because I'm trying to think of duos. Terrell Pryor. Do you think Tennessee keeps him if Trooper's promoted?
I hadn't even thought of that.
Because I'm thinking of this. Okay, Crompton's there 2008, 2009. Fulmer got to stay above water. But, Dave, what if Fulmer can stay at Tennessee into 2010 and you have Terrell Pryor thrown to Randall Cobb in the SEC? And Trooper Taylor's the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you are. And for the on the message board, I think I'll let the guys that get paid to pick the players try to do just that. Well, the issue is not whether or not they wanted Randall Cobb. It's whether or not they waited too long and tried to string him out. That's the issue. And that was bad evaluation from the get. You shouldn't, if he's that good a player, you shouldn't miss on him that bad early in the process. I understand you can get better as a senior, but that's missing pretty bad for a guy to go on and have, what, a 10-year NFL career?
Yeah, and also the idea that they're paid to pick the players, well, then they need to do a good job picking the players because they're paid to pick them. I mean, I'm not going to say, like, this is the thing I always say with coaches, and I hear this all the time. They're paid to make these decisions. Let them make the decision. No, if they're paid to make the decisions, then they should be held accountable when they make bad decisions, right? I mean, that's how life works. I mean, if you or I make bad decisions for this YouTube company and this company that we're starting, this media company, the conglomerate we're trying to build, we pay for it. We suffer. That's how life works. And so,
you mean you've been made fun of on the YouTube message board before?
And exactly. And do you hear me come in and say, let the guy who's paid to pick the topics pick the topics? No, I feed off the message board and topics you guys want. The guy who picks the players, and Fulmer picked wrong. He missed on Patrick Willis. He missed on Randall Cobb. He did get screwed over with Michael Lohr. I will say that Michael Lohr should have been at Tennessee. But there were just so many things that went wrong. He made the wrong hire for an offensive coordinator during that time. And yes, he cost himself an opportunity to have Terrell Pryor throwing the ball to Randall Cobb. If not Terrell Pryor, Dave, do you remember this? Taj Boyd was committed to Tennessee at one point before Lane Kiffin sent him out the door. And Bryce Petty was committed to Tennessee at one point before Lane Kiffin sent him out the door. Cam Newton was interested in Tennessee before Lane Kiffin took over as head coach and said, I'm not interested in him. And so there's 1,000 different ways this could have gone. You could have had one of those quarterbacks. None of them were like outside of Cam Newton. None of them were NFL stars, but they were all stars in college. And you could have one of them throwing the ball to Randall Cobb, who was a superstar receiver in the NFL. And I just have to say that not trusting Trooper Taylor on that was a gigantic, historic level screw up. Because Randall Cobb should have been in. Randall Cobb never should have left Knoxville. Never should have been let out of East Tennessee.
Yep, totally agree with that. We are awaiting the predicted order of finish from the SEC. Where do you think Tennessee will be predicted? I started to say in the East, Caleb, but we don't do that anymore. So where do you think Tennessee will fall once those predictions come out? And then I want to get into Tennessee and who you think will make the all-SEC team.
First of all, I want to say apologize to T-Bag Gumps. Didn't realize you were talking to a Georgia fan. We just kind of saw that. We love everybody on our message board. We do.
Well, this thing happens fast. Sorry about that, Gumps. So did want to interact with you, but we're going back and forth a little bit. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I think Tennessee ends up picked 6th in the SEC. I think they're going to pick Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, and Oklahoma ahead of them. Oh, Ole Miss, they're picked 7th. They're going to be picked 7th and Ole Miss. So Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma will all be picked ahead of Tennessee in SEC media days. Watch. And I think they might only have like 3 all SEC players.
By the way, you'll have to get it in the headline because I forgot to say that Randall Cobb will join the SEC network. So congratulations to him. We're going to take a quick break, and we hope to have the predicted order of finish and the all SEC team in just a couple of minutes, because if you're watching the whole show, we appreciate that. Support our sponsors. We are live at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to be a part of what we're doing, and a major announcement coming up in a week. So hang with me 2 minutes, and we hope to have the predicted order of finish and the all SEC team. I was told it was going to be released at noon Eastern, but we'll see. Hang tight with me.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right, we've got it. We've got the predicted order of finish, and we also have the preseason media all SEC team. So let's get to that right now. This is breaking, just came across my desk moments ago. So the SEC champion is predicted by the SEC to be whom?
Georgia.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Georgia, 165 votes to 27 for Texas. So I thought the disparaging number, the difference is a little surprising to me. Alabama gets 12 votes. Ole Miss gets 4 votes to win the SEC. A couple of idiots voted for Vanderbilt. LSU gets 2 votes, and an idiot votes for South Carolina, who should have his vote revoked. So, as far
second year in a row, someone voted for Vanderbilt. That's just embarrassing. If you don't take these things seriously, you shouldn't be part of your having press credentials, because so many people do take it seriously.
I agree. There have been times I've been so busy that I didn't fill mine out because I didn't have a chance to do the research. There have been years I've done that. That's the way you should take it. If you're not going to go into it, I mean, these guys care, especially when we get to what we're going to do now, the all SEC team preseason. So first team, of course, is Carson Beck and Trevor Etienne. They've got a pretty good backfield at the University of Georgia. Now, Cooper Mays, congratulations, Coop. Well-deserved. You are a first-team preseason all-SEC member at center. No great surprise there, and I'm glad they separated the center designation from the offensive lineman in general, or he might have got booted out because everybody loves tackles, and I get that. Other players that Tennessee selected, so I'm looking at, there's the first team. Second team offense is Quinn Ewers of Texas. No Vols there. Third team quarterback is, do you want to guess who?
Who's third team quarterback? So you had Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe?
Jalen Milroe is your third-team quarterback. Now, no more Vols. Cooper Mays, your only Vol on the preseason All-SEC team. Thoughts?
Wait, gotta be for offense. James Pierce is definitely on defense.
No. Offense. I'm sorry. Offense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, so Cooper Mays is your only offensive All-SEC Vol.
I did not say offense.
No, you didn't say offense, and you were about to have my head explode.
I think I did. But anyway, we'll let people check the tape. Does that surprise you? I mean, Brew McCoy's it if he's healthy if he gets hurt in the 10th game last year, he's on it, no question, right?
Yes. If Brew McCoy is healthy in the 10th game, he's on it. If Jalen Wright is back, he's on it. The only one I would have pushed back on is I felt Javonte Spraggins should have been an offensive lineman on it. But you're right. If they only separate center and then linemen, interior linemen aren't going to get on that list. But I thought Javonte Spraggins should have been on there. But I understand why I can't be mad at anybody. A lot of this is based on last year's production. And last year's production right now, the only guy you can really say that you're high on from Tennessee's offense is Cooper Mays, because a lot of these people weren't playing last year.
The defense starts with this. James Pierce, first team, University of Tennessee. For the record, remind me to tell you something interesting about the real UT in just a moment. Okay, so he's the only Vol that makes the first team All-SEC list. Second team, and we're doing this live on the fly. None on the second team. Third team, Caleb, don't have a Vol on the third team either.
2 All-SEC Vols, guys. 2. I guarantee you they're near the bottom of the list with that, right?
Oh yeah.
Where are they projected to finish?
They didn't go. The release I have, they didn't go that deep. They just went. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they did. Predicted order of finish. I'm sorry. Tennessee. I missed it on the email. Georgia, of course, number 1. Texas. What I want to tell you about Texas is in the official notations, they use UT as far as the players, referring to Tennessee players, and TEX for Texas. Why? Because UT is not in Texas. It's in Knoxville. So Texas is number 2. Alabama is number 3. Ole Miss is number 4. LSU is number 5. Now, if you had to bet lunch, would you say Missouri or Tennessee or Oklahoma are next?
I'm going to say Oklahoma's next.
Nope. They would
Missouri?
Yes, Missouri is next, followed by Tennessee, then Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. So Tennessee is predicted to finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in the SEC. It's not disrespectful, but it's something that would get my attention if I'm a Tennessee football player.
Yeah, me too. And also with only 2 All-SEC players, that would get my attention. Where's the love for Amari Thomas? Who went to SEC Media Days? Where's the love? I mean, I'm sorry. That's the only thing that would bother me too. Now, I'll say again, one of the interesting things about them, looking at that, Dave, I would say 1 through 9 is a tier above 10 through 16. Is that fair? Like Texas A&M, after Texas A&M, there's a cutoff, because even I think 1 through 9 could hope to make the college football playoff. Is that fair to say?
1 through 9?
Texas A&M is number 9 based on your order of finish. And I think Texas A&M is the last team that could make the college football playoff. Auburn, once you start with Auburn, they're not making the college football playoff.
I don't see. Can't make it. I don't think A&M can make it this year, to be real honest with you. And I don't think Oklahoma with their schedule can make it this year. So I think the top 7 are teams that can make it. I don't believe in Missouri. I'm high on Ole Miss, not high on LSU. Alabama, yes, they very well could make it. Texas, and then Georgia's Georgia. So no, I don't think A&M can make the college football playoff this year. They may prove me wrong, but I don't think they can.
All right, well, that's where me and you disagree. You think it goes 1 through 7. I think it goes 1 through 9. I get Oklahoma's schedule, but you never know. I don't believe in Oklahoma, but I can't write them off. I think that you're right. 7's not disrespectful. It really shows Tennessee's one of the biggest oxymorons in the SEC, though, Dave. They have gone the last 2 years 20-6. They're one of the 5 most successful teams, and they haven't lost that much talent over the last 2 years. Yet somehow, only 2 preseason All-SEC players. And the thing is, I can only make a case for maybe a third. Dave, the weird part is I don't even think it's outrageous that they only have 2. Like, who would you say?
Outraged just like 120 seconds ago.
I just like Amari Thomas and felt like he should be on there because Amari Thomas has been a 2-time SEC Media Days attendee and is an unsung hero. But I understand why they don't put him on there.
He's a body guy. Not he takes up guys, and a lot of those nose guard types that take up multiple blockers don't get as much love as they should.
They don't. They never have, and they never will, particularly in 4-3s like Tennessee's. That's why, as you know, Dave, Albert Haynesworth got so mad about being moved over to nose tackle in the NFL. He knew he wasn't going to get the shine he wanted, right? As a nose tackle.
Yes.
And so I
sent you the email from the SEC. They were nice enough to get it to me before we went off the air. So if you want to take a look at that list and see what stands out to you, a lot of Georgia representation on there. As I remind you, the show brought to you by Banks and Jones. And then I'll ask the question, did Tennessee in 7th in the SEC get disrespected?
Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
All right, so I'll ask this question. Should the Vols be 7th in the SEC as per preseason predictions? What say you? Caleb Calhoun, I will give you these 3 options. Yes, sounds about right. No, way too low. No, way too high.
Between those, I'd go no, way too low. It's between sounds about right and way too low because I'm going to say no, a little too low. I think that this is way too much reliance on last year. I would have Tennessee ahead of LSU and Ole Miss. I would. And I know people think, I get the talent Ole Miss brought, but I think people are undervaluing chemistry in college football right now. So I would actually have Tennessee. That would have them ahead of LSU. No, I'm sorry, Missouri and Ole Miss. I'd have them ahead of Missouri and Ole Miss. So that I'd have, which would put them 5th. I'd have LSU 4th, Alabama 3, Texas 2, Georgia 1. I understand all of those. I also want to point out that, can I give you my surprise at the bottom of the list, Dave? You ready?
Yes.
So the bottom of the list, Kentucky 10th, Florida 11th, South Carolina 12th, Arkansas 13th, Mississippi State 4th. Kentucky 11th, Florida 12th, South Carolina 13th, Arkansas 14th, MSU 15th, Vanderbilt 16th. I would move Mississippi State all the way up to number 11 ahead of Florida, South Carolina, and Arkansas. I said when you were off the show, Dave, Mississippi State's one of my surprise teams this year. They have the new offensive genius of the SEC that everybody's going to love.
I asked the question on the YouTube page. Should Vols be 7th in the SEC as per preseason predictions? So no surprise, our audience says no, too low. But 17% said yes, sounds about right. 7th just doesn't sound right to me. 5th sounds right. I look at teams that I think are significantly better still in talent, and I think Georgia for sure. I think Alabama. I think Texas. But I don't know that anybody's that much more talented. So if you want to start to talk about Missouri and Oklahoma and that sort of thing, I will take Tennessee's coach over them. So of those, that second grouping in my mind, Tennessee has a coaching advantage. And I'll take that to the bank. We discussed earlier how FanDuel had dropped Tennessee to 8.5. I would take that to the bank as well, Caleb. 7th just doesn't sound right to me. 5th sounds right. I would say Tennessee was disrespected at 6th, to be real honest with you.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think a part of this is just how loaded a lot of people see the SEC as this year. I think there's a lot of love behind coaches there shouldn't be. the Eli Drinkwitz thing, we've talked at length about that. Just to go through the coaches ahead of Tennessee. I can't believe I'm saying this. I thought, look, he's still the smartest coach hired at LSU since Nick Saban, but I think Josh Heupel has a coaching advantage over Brian Kelly. I think that there's a little red flag ticking with me with Brian Kelly right now, and some of the mistakes he's making, particularly on the defensive side of the ball at LSU. I just have to point that out. Ahead of them, Ole Miss. I would take Josh Heupel over Lane Kiffin, but I don't think there's any difference in intelligence there. I think they're similar. They're both very smart. Alabama and Texas are both at 3-2. And Dave, you may have forgotten this, or I don't know. The last Football IQ segment we did with John at the end of last year was in the college football playoff. I actually had Steve Sarkisian on there for his mismanagement of the clock at the end of the game, but had Washington lost, Kalen DeBoer would have been on there. They both made a comedy of basic errors at the end of games. And you know my philosophy. If you make this comedy of errors, it speaks to a certain level of intelligence that's in coaches, and you're going to keep making them going forward, even if you're a good coach. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I hate to break news, but most coaches aren't that intelligent. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. We have breaking news Monday through Friday like that at 10 a.m. Check us out. We'll have coverage over the weekend, including why Dalton Knecht's jersey should be retired, thanks to Ron Slay, a great friend of the program.